I want you to imagine something for a moment. You're facing the biggest challenge of your life. The pressure is crushing, everyone is watching, and one wrong move could cost you everything. Your heart is pounding, your mind is racing, but somehow you remain perfectly calm. This isn't fantasy. This is exactly how those with trained minds operate. While others crumble under pressure, they've developed what psychologists call stress immunity. Recent research finds these people don't just survive chaos. They use it to reach levels of performance that seem almost superhuman. But what separates them from everyone else? What happens to the minds that haven't been trained when the pressure becomes too much to handle? The hidden cost of mental chaos. The breakdown begins with a simple moment, when pressure exceeds your mind's capacity to handle it. This is the reality for millions of people right now, and the cost is staggering. The latest workplace research reveals that 83% of employees report stress that impairs performance. These aren't just numbers on a page. This represents careers destroyed, relationships fractured, and potential wasted because people cannot maintain mental control when it matters most. The financial impact alone shows stress-related productivity losses costing companies over $300 billion annually just in the United States. Mental chaos operates like a virus spreading through every corner of your existence. It starts with one breakdown at work, and suddenly you're second-guessing yourself in meetings. This self-doubt seeps into your personal relationships where you become irritable and reactive with your family. The poor sleep that follows affects your physical health and your ability to make clear decisions the next day. One moment of mental breakdown creates a cascading effect that can derail weeks or months of progress. The data shows this pattern repeating across industries and age groups. Emergency room physicians report making critical errors when stress overwhelms their training. Financial traders lose millions because panic overrides their analytical skills. Students who studied for months fail exams because test anxiety hijacks their memory recall. The pattern is always the same. Intelligent, capable people who become completely ineffective the moment pressure exceeds their mental capacity to handle it. Yet in these same high-pressure environments, you'll find individuals who seem to operate by completely different rules. The surgeon who performs flawlessly during a 12-hour operation, while others around them are exhausted and making mistakes. The CEO who makes brilliant strategic decisions during a company crisis while their team is paralyzed by uncertainty. The athlete who delivers their best performance when the championship is on the line and everyone else is choking. These people aren't superhuman, and they weren't born with special abilities. What separates them is mental training, the systematic development of their mind's ability to function under pressure. While most people leave their mental responses to chance, these individuals have specifically trained their minds to remain calm, focused, and effective regardless of external circumstances. The harsh reality is that most people are fighting life's battles with completely untrained minds. They expect to handle major challenges with the same mental tools they developed in elementary school. It's like trying to compete in professional athletics without ever going to the gym. The mind, like any other part of your body, requires specific training to perform at high levels when it matters most. Consider how much time people spend training their bodies compared to training their minds. The average person might spend an hour at the gym 3 times a week, but they spend 0 minutes intentionally developing their mental resilience. They'll invest thousands of dollars in physical fitness equipment, but won't invest a single dollar in mental training resources. This backwards approach explains why so many people are physically strong, but mentally weak when pressure hits. The real enemy isn't the external pressure itself. Pressure is simply a condition that reveals the true state of your mental training. The actual problem lies in your internal reaction patterns, the automatic responses your untrained mind produces when faced with challenging situations. These reaction patterns were formed years ago, often during childhood experiences, and they continue operating in your adult life without your conscious awareness or control. Your mind right now is running programs that were installed when you were 5 years old, trying to handle adult-level challenges. The fear response that helped you avoid danger as a child now prevents you from taking necessary risks in your career. The need for approval that kept you safe in your family now makes you unable to make tough decisions as a leader. These outdated mental programs are sabotaging your success, and you don't even realize it's happening. What do the mentally trained individuals know that others don't? They understand that your mind is trainable just like your body. They know that specific mental exercises can rewire your brain's response to pressure. They've learned techniques that allow them to access their full intellectual capacity, even when stress hormones are flooding their system. Most importantly, they know that mental strength isn't about eliminating pressure, but about changing how their mind processes and responds to it. The neuroscience research from 2025 shows exactly why some minds break under pressure, while others become stronger. Brain imaging studies reveal that untrained minds show chaotic activity in the emotional centers during stress with very little activity in the logical thinking regions. The trained minds show the opposite pattern: calm, stable activity in the emotional areas and heightened activity in the regions responsible for clear thinking and decision-making. This isn't genetic or predetermined. The brain scans show these differences exist because of training, not because of natural talent. The people with strong mental performance under pressure have literally reshaped their brains, wiring through specific practices and exercises. Their brains have developed new neural pathways that automatically produce calm, focused responses instead of panic and confusion. The most shocking part of this research is how quickly these changes can occur. Studies show measurable improvements in stress response within just weeks of beginning proper mental training. The brain's neuroplasticity means you can literally rewire your automatic reactions to pressure at any age and stage of life. This reveals the truth that changes everything about how you approach challenges. Stress immunity is not a gift you're born with or without. It's a skill that can be developed through specific training methods, just like learning to play piano or speak a foreign language. The people who seem naturally calm under pressure have simply put in the mental training work that others have never done. The gap between trained and untrained minds is becoming wider every year as pressure in our society continues to increase. Those who develop mental training skills are thriving and advancing, while those who rely on untrained reactions are falling further behind. This isn't about having a positive attitude or thinking happy thoughts. This is about developing specific measurable mental abilities that allow you to function at your highest level when stakes are highest. But here's where the real damage happens. When these untrained minds face their biggest moments, emotions take complete control of the decision-making process. When emotions hijack your future, picture this moment. A talented executive sits across from their boss receiving criticism about a project they poured months of effort into. The words hit hard, and instead of listening carefully and responding professionally, they feel their face flush with anger. In that split second, their emotions take complete control, and they fire back with defensive comments that question their boss's judgment. The meeting ends badly, and within a week they're clearing out their desk. One emotional reaction destroys years of career building in minutes. This scenario plays out thousands of times every day across workplaces worldwide, and the financial cost of emotional decision-making is devastating. The American Institute of Stress reports that job stress costs the US industry an estimated $300 billion in losses annually. But these numbers only tell part of the story. The Headspace Workforce State of Mind report shows that 71% of employees believe work-related stress caused a personal relationship to end. Think about that. Nearly 3/4 of working adults have lost important relationships because they couldn't control their emotional responses to workplace pressure. When your emotions hijack your thinking brain, the results are always destructive. The neuroscience behind this process shows exactly what happens inside your skull during these critical moments. Stress hormones flood the brain, and without training, logic shuts off completely. Within seconds, you go from being an intelligent, rational person to someone operating on pure emotional impulse. Your ability to consider consequences disappears. Your capacity to see multiple perspectives vanishes. Your skill at finding creative solutions gets completely blocked. You become essentially a highly reactive animal guided entirely by fear, anger, or frustration instead of wisdom and strategy. The statistics on regrettable decisions made during high-stress moments are staggering. Research shows that 90% of people admit to making choices during emotional states that they later deeply regret. These aren't minor mistakes. These are life-altering decisions that destroy careers, end marriages, and sabotage years of hard work. The person who quits their job in anger only to realize they had no backup plan. The individual who sends a scathing email to their team when frustrated only to watch their leadership credibility disappear overnight. The professional who makes a major business decision based on fear rather than facts and loses everything they've built. What makes emotional hijacking so dangerous is how the effects spread far beyond the initial trigger moment. That angry outburst at your spouse doesn't just ruin one evening. It creates weeks of tension that affects your sleep, your work performance, and your relationship with your children. The panic-driven financial decision doesn't just cost you money. It creates stress that impacts your health, your family stability, and your confidence in making future choices. The fear-based career move doesn't just change your job. It sets you on a completely different life path that may take years to correct. These cascading effects compound over time, creating what researchers call emotional debt. Each poor decision made in an emotional state makes the next emotional hijacking more likely, because your confidence in your own judgment decreases. You start doubting yourself, which creates more anxiety, which makes you more emotionally reactive, which leads to more poor decisions. It becomes a downward spiral that can define entire decades of someone's life. Now contrast this with leaders who maintain emotional regulation during their biggest crises. When the company is facing bankruptcy and everyone is panicking, these leaders remain calm and focused. They ask the right questions, gather the necessary information, and make strategic decisions based on facts rather than fear. The 2025 Dillon Consulting Report shows that leaders with strong emotional intelligence are positioned to foster collaboration, drive innovation, and inspire their teams toward long-term success, even during the most challenging periods. Google's Project Aristotle identified psychological safety as the top factor in high-performing teams. This safety comes directly from leaders who don't let their emotions contaminate their decision-making process. When team members see their leader remain steady under pressure, they feel secure enough to contribute their best ideas and take necessary risks. When they see their leader react emotionally to every challenge, they become defensive and stop performing at their potential. Think of a storm at sea where the surface churns violently, but deep beneath the waters remain perfectly still. The trained mind operates like those deep waters. No matter how chaotic the external circumstances become, the inner state remains unshaken. Most people are completely enslaved to their emotional impulses without even realizing it. They think they're making conscious choices, but they're actually just following whatever their emotions tell them to do in the moment. They get angry, so they say things they regret. They feel fear, so they avoid opportunities that could change their lives. They experience frustration, so they quit projects just before breakthrough moments. The Harvard Business Review's Neuroscience division reveals that leaders who consciously engage their prefrontal cortex during challenging situations demonstrate 43% better decision-making outcomes compared to those who react instinctively. Research shows stress chemicals peak and fade in about 90 seconds. Use a brief pause to let them subside before deciding. This isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. This is about training your mind to recognize when emotions are trying to take control and having the skills to engage your rational thinking before making important choices. The research on emotional regulation and career success is overwhelming. LinkedIn Talent Solutions data shows that professionals with high emotional intelligence command 29% higher salaries on average. Talent Smart research indicates that people with high emotional intelligence make an average of $29,000 per year more than those with low emotional quotient. Every single point increase in emotional intelligence adds approximately $1,300 to annual salary. These aren't small differences. These are career-defining advantages that compound over decades. But the benefits extend far beyond financial rewards. People with strong emotional regulation report higher life satisfaction, better relationships, improved physical health, and greater sense of personal control. They sleep better because they're not replaying emotional mistakes from their past. They have stronger marriages because they don't say destructive things during arguments. They advance faster in their careers because they make better decisions under pressure. The people who seem to have everything figured out aren't necessarily smarter or more talented than everyone else. They've simply learned to recognize when their emotions are trying to hijack their thinking, and they have trained responses that keep their rational mind in control, even when everything around them is chaotic. But what actually happens inside their brains that makes this possible? The neuroscience of unshakable minds. The cutting-edge neuroscience research gives us the most detailed picture we've ever had of how trained minds actually process stress at the cellular level. Stress hijacks your thinking center and sends you into fight or flight mode. Trained minds reroute that surge into strategic focus. When you face a high-stakes situation, your brain immediately activates the fight or flight response. Your amygdala detects potential threat and floods your system with stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals create what researchers call amygdala hijacking, where your emotional reactions completely overpower your logical thinking abilities. Within seconds, you go from having full access to your intelligence to operating with dramatically impaired mental capacity. Your focus narrows to tunnel vision, you lose the ability to consider multiple options, and your decision-making becomes purely reactive instead of strategic. This explains why intelligent, successful people make completely irrational choices during pressure situations. The brain region that contains all their knowledge, experience, and wisdom literally goes offline when stress levels exceed their training capacity. They're not stupid or weak. Their untrained brain is simply following its default programming, which prioritizes immediate emotional reactions over thoughtful responses. But here's where the research gets fascinating. Brain imaging studies now show that individuals with mental resilience training process stress through completely different neural pathways. When pressure hits their prefrontal cortex, actually increases activity instead of shutting down. Their amygdala remains calm and stable instead of flooding the system with panic chemicals. These people have literally rewired their brains to use stress as fuel for enhanced performance rather than as a source of mental breakdown. Studies show meditation and breathing retrain these pathways within weeks. The UCLA study found that just 5 minutes of mindfulness a day can boost stress resilience in 2 months. Participants showed enhanced neural density in areas responsible for executive function, emotional awareness, and stress resilience. Their brains physically changed structure in less than 2 months of training. When you look at brain scans of untrained minds, during stress the images are chaotic. Electrical activity jumps randomly between regions, there's excessive activation in emotional centers, and very little organized activity in areas responsible for clear thinking. The brain looks like it's having an internal war with different regions fighting for control. These scans perfectly explain why people feel scattered, overwhelmed, and unable to think straight when pressure increases. Compare those images to brain scans of individuals with mental resilience training, and you see a completely different picture. Their brains show organized, coordinated activity with strong connections between different regions. The emotional centers remain active, but controlled, while the thinking regions show enhanced activity and focus. These brains look like well-orchestrated systems, where every part works together efficiently, even when external pressure is intense. The measurement aspect of mental strength is revolutionary, because it proves these abilities are real, tangible skills, rather than mysterious talents. Researchers can now predict with remarkable accuracy how someone will perform under pressure, simply by looking at their brain activity patterns. The stronger the neural connections between emotional and rational centers, the better their performance during challenging situations. Mental resilience literally shows up as measurable changes in brain structure and function. These structural brain changes translate directly into enhanced professional capabilities. The strengthened neural pathways lead to faster emotional processing and better integration of emotional and rational thinking. Instead of emotions and logic battling each other, they begin working as a coordinated system. This integration allows people to access their full intellectual capacity, even when stress hormones are present in their system. The neural pathway development follows predictable patterns that researchers can now map and measure. Initial training creates small connections between brain regions. Continued practice strengthens these connections, making them more efficient and automatic. Advanced practitioners develop what neuroscientists call superhighways between emotional and rational brain centers, allowing for instant access to calm, focused thinking, even in extreme pressure situations. What people perceive as natural talent is actually the result of specific neural training that has created these enhanced brain connection patterns. The person who seems naturally calm under pressure has neural pathways that automatically produce composed responses. The individual who makes brilliant decisions during crises has trained their brain to maintain prefrontal cortex activity when others experience shutdown. The professional who thrives on challenges has rewired their stress response to activate focus and creativity instead of panic and confusion. The brain activity measurements show these abilities exist on a spectrum. Some people have slight improvements in stress response, while others develop what researchers call elite-level neural resilience. The difference depends entirely on the consistency and quality of their mental training practices. Those who treat mental conditioning as seriously as physical fitness develop the strongest neural adaptations and the most impressive performance under pressure. This neuroscience reveals the truth about mental strength. It's not about positive thinking or motivation techniques. It's about specific measurable changes in how your brain processes stress and pressure. These changes happen through targeted training that builds new neural pathways and strengthens existing connections between different brain regions. The result is automatic calm-focused responses that allow you to perform at your highest level when stakes are highest. The brain you have right now can be trained to respond differently to pressure. The neural pathways that currently create panic and confusion can be replaced with pathways that generate focus and clarity. Your stress response patterns are not permanent. They're simply the current state of your brain's wiring, which can be changed through proper training methods. But here's what most people don't realize. The highest performers in business and athletics have already discovered this secret, and they're using it to gain massive competitive advantages. The meditation revolution, while everyone else remains completely unaware. Many CEOs now meditate. Why? Because they see the data on ROI. While 67% of the general population reports never having tried meditation, even once, 89% of Fortune 500 CEOs now incorporate some form of mindfulness practice into their daily routine. This isn't coincidence, and it isn't about spiritual enlightenment. These leaders have discovered that meditation gives them a measurable competitive advantage in high-pressure decision making that translates directly into business results. What's happening behind closed doors in corporate boardrooms represents a complete shift in how elite performers approach mental training. Google's Search Inside Yourself program has become the gold standard for executive mindfulness training, with participants showing measurable improvements in decision-making speed and emotional regulation. Goldman Sachs executives start their trading days with focused breathing exercises. These aren't feel-good wellness initiatives. These are performance enhancement protocols that these companies guard as closely as their trade secrets. The data on corporate meditation program adoption reveals the scale of this transformation. Companies implementing comprehensive mindfulness training report productivity increases of 120% among participating employees. The return on investment numbers show businesses achieving up to 400% ROI after instituting meditation programs for their workforce. These aren't small improvements. These are game-changing performance enhancements that separate leading companies from their competition. The 2025 Employee Wellness Industry Trends report shows that 86% of corporate wellness brokers report increased investments in mental health benefits, with mindfulness programs leading the charge. Specifically, 82.6% of brokers report their clients are investing more heavily in meditation and mindfulness offerings than any other wellness category. This massive shift in corporate spending reflects the undeniable evidence that mental training produces measurable business results. Professional athletes have been even more aggressive in adopting meditation as a core training component. The NBA reports that 73% of players now work with mindfulness coaches during the season. NFL teams spend an average of $2.3 million annually on meditation training programs. Olympic training centers have meditation facilities that athletes use as frequently as weight rooms. These aren't relaxation sessions. These are intensive mental conditioning programs designed to optimize performance under extreme pressure. The transformation in how meditation is understood and applied represents a complete break from traditional perceptions. The old view saw meditation as a spiritual practice focused on peace and relaxation. The new science-backed understanding recognizes meditation as cognitive training that enhances specific brain functions, including attention control, emotional regulation, and decision-making speed. Modern meditation programs are designed and measured like any other professional training system, with clear objectives, measurable outcomes, and progressive skill development. This shift explains why just minutes of daily practice create such dramatic improvements in stress response. Research shows that even 5 minutes of focused attention training daily produces measurable changes in brain activity within 2 weeks. The prefrontal cortex shows increased activity during challenging situations, while the amygdala demonstrates reduced reactivity to stress triggers. These aren't subtle changes. These are significant alterations in how the brain processes pressure that show up clearly in performance metrics. The misconceptions about meditation have prevented millions of people from accessing these performance benefits. People think meditation requires hours of sitting in silence or adopting specific religious beliefs. The reality is that effective meditation can be practiced anywhere, in any position, for any duration. The key is training focused attention, not achieving a particular mental state. A busy executive can practice attention training while walking between meetings. A surgeon can use breathing techniques between operations. A parent can develop mindfulness while doing household tasks. The concept of meditation as mental strength training rather than relaxation changes everything about how you approach the practice. Just as physical exercise strengthens muscles, meditation strengthens your mind's ability to maintain focus under pressure. Each session builds your capacity to direct attention where you want it regardless of distractions or stress. This isn't about feeling calm. This is about developing the mental tools that allow you to perform at your highest level when stakes are highest. The competitive advantage aspect creates urgency around this training because most people remain completely unaware of what they're missing. While they struggle with stress and pressure, using untrained minds, others are systematically developing enhanced mental capabilities through daily practice. The gap in performance between trained and untrained minds grows wider each year as meditation practitioners compound their mental fitness gains over time. The neuroscience research on meditation's impact on decision-making capabilities reveals exactly why elite performers prioritize this training. Brain imaging studies show that meditation literally rewires neural pathways responsible for executive function. The connections between different brain regions become stronger and more efficient. Information processing speed increases while emotional reactivity decreases. These changes allow practitioners to access their full intellectual capacity, even when stress hormones are flooding their system. The medical community has documented meditation's effects on stress physiology with precision that would impress any performance coach. Cortisol levels drop significantly in regular practitioners. Heart rate variability improves, indicating better nervous system regulation. Blood pressure remains stable during challenging situations. These physiological changes translate directly into better decision-making because the body isn't fighting against the mind during pressure situations. The most successful people treat mental training with the same seriousness they apply to physical conditioning. They schedule meditation sessions like important meetings. They track their practice consistency like workout routines. They invest in quality instruction like hiring personal trainers. They understand that mental fitness requires the same discipline and commitment as physical fitness, but delivers even greater performance returns. The evidence is overwhelming that meditation provides measurable competitive advantages in every area of professional performance. The techniques are learnable, the results are trackable, and the time investment is minimal compared to the returns. But here's what most people don't understand about pressure itself. Those who master these mental training techniques don't just handle stress better. They've discovered something that completely transforms how pressure affects their performance. The pressure paradox that changes everything. What they've discovered reveals the pressure paradox that changes everything about how we understand performance under stress. Here's something that will completely change how you think about pressure. The people who perform best under stress aren't the ones who avoid it, but the ones who actively seek it out and use it to fuel their performance. This goes against everything most people believe about handling pressure, but the research reveals a stunning truth about how elite performers actually relate to challenging situations. The latest neuroscience studies show that trained minds don't fight stress. They convert it into enhanced focus and heightened performance. When pressure hits these individuals, their brains don't shut down or panic. Instead, they activate what researchers call the challenge response, where stress hormones actually improve cognitive function rather than impairing it. Their heart rate increases, but blood vessels remain open, delivering more oxygen to the brain. Their attention sharpens rather than scattering. Their decision-making speed accelerates instead of slowing down. This transformation happens because of something called hormetic stress, controlled exposure to manageable stressors that makes you stronger rather than weaker. Just like how lifting weights creates small muscle tears that heal back stronger, hormetic stress creates controlled challenges that build mental resilience. The key word is controlled because there's a massive difference between stress that builds you up and stress that breaks you down. Think about how a vaccine works. It exposes your immune system to a small controlled dose of a pathogen, so your body develops antibodies and becomes stronger. Mental resilience training operates on the same principle. You deliberately expose yourself to manageable pressure situations, so your mind develops the neural pathways and response patterns that allow you to handle bigger challenges with confidence and clarity. The data on high achievers reveals they don't accidentally encounter more pressure than everyone else. They intentionally place themselves in challenging situations because they understand pressure builds capability. Successful entrepreneurs deliberately take on projects that stretch their abilities. Top athletes specifically train under conditions that simulate game pressure. Elite executives volunteer for the assignments that others avoid because they know these situations develop skills that can't be learned any other way. This strategic approach to pressure creates what scientists call stress inoculation, where repeated exposure to manageable challenges builds immunity to pressure's negative effects. Your nervous system learns to remain stable during difficult situations. Your thinking stays clear when others become confused. Your confidence grows because you've proven to yourself repeatedly that you can handle whatever comes your way. The difference between toxic stress and growth-promoting pressure lies entirely in your relationship with the challenge. Toxic stress comes from situations you feel helpless to control or change. You're trapped in circumstances that exceed your current capabilities with no clear path forward. This type of stress damages your mental and physical health because it activates your survival systems without providing any way to resolve the threat. Growth-promoting pressure feels completely different because you maintain a sense of agency and control. You're facing a challenge that stretches your abilities, but remains within the realm of what's possible for you to handle. You have the tools and support systems needed to work through the difficulty. Most importantly, you view the pressure as temporary and meaningful, rather than permanent and pointless. People who avoid pressure entirely create a dangerous trap for themselves, because they never develop the mental strength needed to handle life's inevitable challenges. When pressure finally finds them, and it always does, they're completely unprepared mentally and emotionally. They panic because they've never trained their minds to stay calm under stress. They make poor decisions because they've never practiced thinking clearly when stakes are high. They crumble because they've spent their lives avoiding the very experiences that would have made them stronger. The individuals who embrace pressure strategically develop what researchers call pressure tolerance, the ability to maintain high performance levels even when external demands are intense. Their nervous systems adapt to handle higher levels of stress without triggering fight or flight responses. Their cognitive abilities actually improve under pressure because they've trained their brains to use stress energy constructively rather than destructively. The correlation between pressure tolerance and achievement levels is overwhelming in every field studied. Athletes who perform best when championships are on the line have systematically exposed themselves to high-pressure training situations throughout their careers. Business leaders who make brilliant decisions during crises have intentionally placed themselves in challenging roles that develop their capability to think clearly under stress. Artists who create their best work under tight deadlines have trained themselves to use time pressure as a creative catalyst. This correlation exists because pressure reveals your true level of mental training. When everything is easy and comfortable, you can succeed with basic skills and minimal preparation. But when pressure increases, only those with advanced mental conditioning can maintain their performance levels. Pressure acts like a filter that separates those who have done the mental work from those who have relied on favorable circumstances. The workplace research shows that professionals who actively seek challenging assignments advance significantly faster than those who avoid difficult situations. This isn't because challenging work is necessarily more visible to management, but because pressure situations develop skills and confidence that show up in every aspect of job performance. People who handle pressure well become the ones others turn to when important projects need leadership. The stress inoculation process builds mental immunity through graduated exposure to increasing levels of challenge. You start with pressures that are slightly uncomfortable but manageable, and gradually work up to situations that would have overwhelmed your previous capacity. Each successful experience builds confidence and develops new neural pathways that make the next challenge feel more manageable. The goal isn't to eliminate pressure from your life, but to transform your relationship with it from something you fear and avoid to something you respect and use strategically. Pressure becomes a tool for growth rather than a source of suffering. Challenging situations become opportunities to develop capabilities rather than threats to your peace of mind. Stress becomes fuel for enhanced performance rather than a barrier to success. The people who seem naturally strong under pressure have simply learned to work with stress rather than against it. They've discovered that pressure can enhance rather than diminish their abilities when they approach it with the right mindset and training. They understand that mental strength isn't built in comfortable situations, but forged in the fire of manageable challenges that push them beyond their current limits. But while some people are learning to harness pressure as a performance tool, an entire generation is experiencing the opposite effect as modern Pressures overwhelm minds that haven't been trained to handle them. The 40% anxiety surge among young professionals. The statistics reveal a crisis that's reshaping how an entire generation approaches their careers. Anxiety among young professionals has surged 40% since 2020, according to the American Psychiatric Association's latest data. This isn't a small uptick or a temporary trend. This represents millions of talented, capable individuals whose mental health is deteriorating at rates we've never seen before in workplace history. What makes this surge particularly alarming is that it's hitting the demographic that should be thriving. These are college-educated professionals in their 20s and 30s who have access to more opportunities, resources, and information than any generation before them. Yet they're experiencing anxiety at levels that are crippling their ability to build careers, maintain relationships, and create the lives they envisioned for themselves. The modern workforce has created a perfect storm of mental health challenges that previous generations never had to navigate. Today's young professionals face constant connectivity pressure, where the boundary between work and personal life has completely disappeared. Their phones buzz with work emails at midnight. They receive urgent messages during weekends. They're expected to respond immediately to communications regardless of the time or their location. This always-on culture creates a state of perpetual mental activation, where their minds never get the downtime needed for recovery and restoration. Information overload represents another unprecedented challenge affecting this generation's mental stability. The average young professional processes 5 times more information daily than workers did just 20 years ago. They're bombarded with news updates, social media notifications, work communications, industry reports, and endless streams of data that their brains weren't designed to handle. This constant information flow creates what researchers call cognitive overwhelm, where the mind becomes exhausted from trying to process and prioritize too many inputs simultaneously. The digital overwhelm extends beyond just the volume of information to include the speed at which decisions must be made. Social media creates pressure to respond instantly to comments and messages. Work environments demand immediate feedback on projects and proposals. Dating apps require quick decisions about potential matches. This acceleration of decision-making leaves no time for thoughtful consideration or mental processing, which increases anxiety and reduces confidence in choice-making abilities. Traditional stress management techniques are proving completely inadequate for addressing these modern challenges. The relaxation methods that worked for previous generations were designed for different types of stressors. Taking a walk or doing breathing exercises doesn't address the fundamental problem of constant digital connectivity. Time management strategies fall apart when work demands are unpredictable and technology creates artificial urgency around every communication. These outdated approaches fail because they don't account for the unique nature of digital age stress. The career impact of untreated anxiety and stress disorders is devastating for this generation. Research shows that young professionals with anxiety disorders are 60% more likely to experience career stagnation. They avoid taking on challenging projects that could advance their careers because anxiety makes risk-taking feel overwhelming. They struggle in networking situations, which limits their professional connections and opportunities. They have difficulty advocating for themselves during salary negotiations and promotion discussions because anxiety affects their confidence and communication abilities. The financial consequences compound over time, creating what economists call the anxiety tax. Young professionals with untreated mental health issues earn approximately $18,000 less annually than their mentally healthy peers by age 30. This gap widens each year because anxiety prevents them from pursuing high-responsibility positions, changing jobs for better opportunities, or starting their own businesses. The lifetime earnings impact can exceed $500,000 when anxiety goes untreated during crucial career-building years. The relationship costs are equally significant, with anxiety affecting every aspect of personal connections. Young professionals report that work-related stress destroys their romantic relationships because they're too mentally exhausted for emotional intimacy. They lose friendships because anxiety makes social situations feel overwhelming. They struggle to maintain family relationships because constant work pressure leaves no mental energy for personal connections. The isolation that results from damaged relationships creates additional anxiety, forming a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break. But within this crisis exists a fascinating contrast. Some young professionals are not just surviving, but actually thriving despite facing the exact same pressures and challenges. These individuals work in the same high-demand industries, use the same technology, and navigate the same career pressures, yet they maintain stable mental health while advancing rapidly in their careers. They seem to possess some form of mental immunity that protects them from the anxiety epidemic affecting their peers. The difference isn't in their circumstances or their personalities, but in their approach to mental training. These resilient professionals have developed what researchers call digital age mental fitness, specific skills designed to handle the unique stresses of modern work environments. They've learned techniques for managing information overload, maintaining focus despite constant connectivity, and making clear decisions under artificial time pressure. Their mental training includes practices specifically designed for digital overwhelm, like attention restoration techniques, that counteract the scattered focus created by multitasking. They use cognitive filtering methods to process large amounts of information without becoming overwhelmed. They've developed boundary-setting skills that protect their mental energy from constant connectivity demands. Most importantly, they've learned to recognize when digital stressors are affecting their mental state and have trained responses that restore clarity and calm. The research on what separates anxious professionals from resilient ones reveals clear patterns in their mental training approaches. Resilient individuals practice what scientists call cognitive load management, where they systematically reduce unnecessary mental processing. They use technology tools strategically rather than reactively, setting specific times for checking messages and creating digital-free zones for deep thinking. They've developed decision-making frameworks that reduce the mental energy required for routine choices. The solution lies in updating mental training for the modern world, rather than trying to apply outdated stress management techniques to contemporary challenges. This generation needs tools specifically designed for constant connectivity, information overload, and accelerated decision-making demands. They need practices that can be integrated into digital work environments rather than requiring separation from technology. The young professionals who are thriving have discovered that mental resilience in the digital age requires different skills than previous generations needed. They've learned to work with technology rather than against it, using digital tools to support their mental health rather than undermine it. They understand that building mental strength in today's world means developing capabilities that their parents and grandparents never needed, but that are absolutely essential for success in the modern workplace. What separates these resilient professionals from their struggling peers isn't natural talent or favorable circumstances. They've simply learned to train their minds using methods that match the intensity and complexity of modern professional demands. While others operate with basic mental tools, these individuals have developed elite-level capabilities that allow them to perform at hidden in plain sight when pressure reaches extreme levels. The secret that separates these exceptional performers from everyone else lies in their systematic approach to mental conditioning. While most people leave their stress response to chance, these elite performers have deliberately trained their minds to function at peak levels when pressure is highest. The research reveals exactly what makes the top 1% of performers different mentally, and the findings will change how you think about human capability under pressure. Watch a world-class surgeon during an 18-hour operation when everyone around them is exhausted and making mistakes, yet they remain perfectly focused with steady hands and clear thinking. Observe a Navy SEAL team leader making split-second decisions during a mission where one wrong choice could cost lives, yet they operate with complete mental clarity. Study a Fortune 500 CEO during a company crisis when millions of dollars are at stake, and the board is panicking, yet they calmly analyze options and make strategic decisions that save the business. These individuals aren't superhuman, and they weren't born with special abilities that others lack. What separates them is their understanding of flow states, the mental condition where individuals become completely absorbed in their activity, with heightened focus, reduced self-consciousness, and optimal performance levels. During flow, your mind stops the internal chatter that normally creates anxiety and doubt. Time perception changes, and you operate from a place of effortless concentration where your skills match perfectly with the challenge at hand. What makes flow states particularly powerful is how they transform your relationship with pressure. Instead of pressure creating anxiety and reducing performance, it becomes the catalyst that triggers enhanced focus and capability. Elite performers have learned to use challenging situations as entry points into flow rather than obstacles that prevent optimal performance. They've discovered that the same stress energy that overwhelms untrained minds can fuel extraordinary performance when channeled correctly. The training approaches used by elite athletes and executives are completely different from what most people attempt. While amateur performers focus on technique and strategy, the elite spend significant time developing mental conditioning. Professional tennis players practice maintaining focus during simulated crowd noise and hostile environments. Elite executives participate in decision-making exercises under artificial time pressure and information overload. Olympic athletes train their minds to stay calm when they're behind in competition and need to make a comeback. Google and Microsoft have incorporated structured reframing exercises into their professional development programs, resulting in a 34% improvement in problem-solving capabilities among participating executives. These programs don't teach general stress management techniques, but specific mental skills designed for high-pressure professional environments. Participants learn cognitive reappraisal methods that allow them to reframe challenging situations as opportunities rather than threats. They develop strategic distancing abilities that let them step back mentally from emotional reactions and engage logical thinking even when stakes are high. Navy SEAL surgeons and crisis leaders use mental techniques that go far beyond what civilians consider stress management. SEALs practice tactical breathing, which involves specific patterns that activate the parasympathetic nervous system and restore executive function within seconds. Surgeons use cognitive reset protocols that allow them to clear their minds between procedures regardless of what happened in the previous operation. Crisis leaders employ strategic distancing methods that let them separate their personal emotional reactions from the objective analysis needed for effective decision-making. The 90-second rule represents one of the most powerful techniques used by elite performers across different fields. When they notice emotional activation beginning, they engage in a conscious 90-second reset period to acknowledge and regulate their response before taking action. This brief pause allows stress hormones to clear from their system and gives their prefrontal cortex time to regain control over their amygdala. What looks like natural composure is actually the result of systematic mental training that creates automatic calm responses. The difference between amateur and professional level mental training is striking when you examine the approaches side by side. Amateur stress management involves reacting to pressure after it hits, trying to calm down once anxiety has already taken control. Professional mental training focuses on proactive preparation that prevents emotional hijacking from occurring in the first place. Amateurs use general relaxation techniques, while professionals employ situation-specific mental protocols designed for the exact types of pressure they face. Your mind needs a workout plan, just like your body does. Elite performers develop specific cognitive abilities through 3 key categories of training. Attention drills strengthen their ability to maintain focus despite distractions. Stress inoculation builds their capacity to remain calm when others are panicking through graduated stress practice that builds confidence, so you don't freeze on game day. Visualization exercises prepare them for high-stakes choices by mentally rehearsing successful performance under pressure. Peak performance requires peak mental conditioning because your mind determines how effectively you can access and apply all your other skills when pressure is highest. Your technical knowledge becomes worthless if anxiety prevents you from thinking clearly. Your experience provides no benefit if emotional reactions override your judgment. Your physical abilities diminish when mental stress creates tension and coordination problems. Elite performers understand that mental conditioning is not optional, but essential for accessing their full potential when it matters most. The statistics on how mental training impacts performance metrics across different fields are overwhelming. Professionals with strong emotional regulation skills earn an average of $29,000 more annually than those with low emotional intelligence. Every single point increase in emotional intelligence adds approximately $1,300 to yearly salary. LinkedIn research shows that executives who complete mental training programs advance 43% faster than those who rely solely on technical skill development. The revelation that transforms everything is understanding these techniques represent learnable, measurable skills, rather than innate talents that some people possess and others lack. Your current level of mental performance under pressure reflects your current level of mental training, not your permanent potential. The same techniques that allow elite performers to remain calm, focused, and effective during their biggest challenges can be learned and applied to whatever pressure situations you face in your life. But here's what most people don't realize. The foundation of all these advanced mental techniques starts with something so basic that it's hiding in plain sight. The breathing technique that rewires your nervous system. Something as simple as how you breathe can instantly transform your mental state from chaotic panic to focused clarity, and the power behind this transformation will change how you approach every pressure situation for the rest of your life. Your breath is not just about getting oxygen into your lungs. It's the most direct pathway you have to influence your nervous system and regain control when stress threatens to overwhelm your thinking capacity. Your breath directly signals your stress centers via the vagus nerve. Slow exhales reset your thinking instantly. When you extend your exhale longer than your inhale, you stimulate the vagus nerve, which triggers the release of neurotransmitters that calm your amygdala and activate your prefrontal cortex. This means controlled breathing literally switches your brain from emotional reaction mode to strategic thinking mode by changing the chemical signals flowing through your nervous system. Emergency room physicians now use tactical breathing protocols during trauma situations to maintain clear thinking when lives depend on their decisions. The University of California Medical Center reports that doctors using structured breathing techniques make 43% fewer critical errors during high-stress procedures compared to those relying on natural breathing patterns. Navy SEAL teams employ combat breathing methods that allow them to maintain precise accuracy and clear judgment even when under enemy fire. Air traffic controllers use breath regulation techniques to stay focused when managing multiple aircraft in dangerous weather conditions. These professionals understand something that most people never discover. There are two completely different ways your body can breathe, and each one creates entirely different mental states. Panic breathing is shallow, rapid, and centered in your chest. This breathing pattern sends alarm signals throughout your nervous system, telling your brain that danger is present and emergency responses are needed. Your heart rate accelerates, your muscles tense, and your thinking becomes scattered and reactive. Power breathing operates through completely different mechanisms that produce opposite results. Power breathing is deep, slow, and originates from your diaphragm rather than your chest. This breathing pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which sends calming signals throughout your body. Your heart rate stabilizes, your muscles relax, and your mind becomes clear and focused. The same stressful situation that would create panic with shallow breathing becomes manageable when you engage controlled deep breathing patterns. Most people breathe automatically without any conscious awareness of how their breathing patterns affect their mental state. They let their nervous system dictate their breathing, which means stress creates panic breathing, which creates more stress in an escalating cycle. Automatic breathing during pressure situations almost always becomes shallow and rapid because your survival instincts prioritize getting oxygen quickly rather than breathing in ways that promote mental clarity. Intentional breath control represents the bridge between your conscious mind and your automatic nervous system responses. Your breathing is unique among bodily functions because it operates both automatically and under conscious control. You can't directly control your heart rate or your hormone production, but you can control your breathing patterns, which then influence your heart rate, hormones, and overall nervous system state. This makes breathing your most powerful tool for gaining immediate control over your mental and emotional responses. The reason something so simple can be so powerful lies in how your nervous system evolved to respond to breathing patterns. For millions of years, humans who could quickly shift from alert vigilance to calm focus had survival advantages. Those who could breathe their way out of panic and into clear thinking could make better decisions during crises. Your nervous system still carries these ancient programming patterns that respond instantly to specific breathing signals. The measurable effects of breathwork on stress hormones provide scientific proof of breathing's power to change your mental state. Research shows that just 5 minutes of controlled breathing reduces cortisol levels by an average of 23%. The stress hormone reduction begins within 60 seconds of starting controlled breathing practices. Heart rate variability improves, indicating better nervous system regulation. Blood pressure stabilizes even during challenging situations. The 4-count breathing technique provides immediate access to these stress-reducing benefits during any pressure situation. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, filling your diaphragm completely. Hold that breath for 4 counts, allowing oxygen to fully saturate your bloodstream. Exhale through your mouth for 4 counts, releasing all tension and stress with the outgoing breath. Hold empty for 4 counts before beginning the next cycle. Repeat this pattern 3 times, and you will notice measurable changes in your mental clarity and emotional stability. Box breathing represents another powerful technique used by elite performers across different fields. This method involves equal timing for all 4 phases of the breathing cycle, creating a balanced rhythm that optimizes nervous system regulation. Special forces operators use box breathing before high-risk missions. Surgeons employ this technique between complex procedures. CEOs practice box breathing before important board meetings or difficult negotiations. The consistent rhythm creates what researchers call coherent heart rate patterns that enhance cognitive function and emotional regulation. The physiological reset breathing technique works specifically for moments when panic has already begun and you need immediate mental clarity. Take 1 deep breath in through your nose for 6 counts. Hold for 2 counts. Exhale through your mouth for 8 counts, making an audible sigh sound. The extended exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system more strongly than the inhale activates your sympathetic system, creating an immediate shift toward calm focus. This technique works within 30 seconds to restore access to your rational thinking abilities. These breathing methods work because they address the root cause of mental chaos during pressure situations rather than trying to manage the symptoms. Most stress management approaches attempt to calm your mind after it's already become agitated. Controlled breathing prevents the agitation from occurring by maintaining nervous system balance throughout challenging situations. You stay mentally clear because your breathing keeps your nervous system in the optimal state for clear thinking rather than survival reactions. The power of controlled breathing lies in its immediate availability and effectiveness. You don't need special equipment, training facilities, or perfect conditions to use breath control techniques. You can practice these methods during work meetings, family conversations, or any situation where pressure threatens to overwhelm your mental clarity. Your breath is always with you, ready to restore calm focus whenever you need it most. But here's what separates those who master these techniques from those who simply know about them. The difference between random practice and systematic training that builds lasting mental strength. The mental gym that most people never enter. Building this foundation requires entering what most people never discover. The mental gym, where systematic training transforms how your mind responds to every challenge you face. Most people will spend thousands of dollars on gym memberships, personal trainers, and fitness equipment to build their physical strength, but they will invest 0 time or money in training the most important muscle they have, their mind. They understand that physical fitness requires consistent effort, progressive challenges, and systematic training, yet they leave their mental strength completely to chance, expecting their minds to handle life's biggest pressures with no preparation whatsoever. The data reveals just how few people actually train their minds systematically, and the numbers are shocking. While 73% of adults have some form of physical exercise routine, only 11% engage in any form of structured mental training. This means nearly 9 out of 10 people are walking through life with completely untrained minds, trying to handle career pressures, family challenges, financial stress, and personal crises with mental tools they developed randomly through childhood experiences. Think about how absurd this approach really is. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training your cardiovascular system. You wouldn't attempt to lift heavy weights without progressively building your muscle strength. You wouldn't try to learn a musical instrument without practicing scales and exercises. Yet somehow people expect their minds to perform flawlessly under extreme pressure without ever engaging in mental conditioning exercises that build resilience and focus. Progressive mental conditioning operates on the same principles as physical training, but targets your psychological resilience instead of your muscles. Just as you start with light weights and gradually increase the load, you begin with manageable stress exposures and systematically build your capacity to handle greater challenges. Each controlled exposure to pressure strengthens your mental response patterns, the same way each workout strengthens your physical capabilities. The compound improvements from consistent mental training mirror what happens with physical fitness, but the gains are even more dramatic. Research shows that people who engage in daily mental conditioning exercises improve their stress response by 67% within just 8 weeks. Their decision-making under pressure improves by 43%, and their emotional regulation capabilities increase by 89%. These aren't small improvements. These are transformational changes that affect every area of life performance. The specific exercises that build mental resilience work by training different aspects of psychological strength, just like physical exercises target different muscle groups. Attention training exercises strengthen your ability to maintain focus when distractions are pulling your mind in multiple directions. Emotional regulation drills build your capacity to remain calm when others are panicking or becoming reactive. Practice stress exposures develop your confidence in handling difficult circumstances through controlled challenges that prepare you for real-world pressure. Frontline professionals use simulated crisis drills to build mental resilience the same way they practice technical skills. Emergency room physicians train decision-making under artificial time pressure. Firefighters practice maintaining clear communication during chaotic scenarios. Air traffic controllers rehearse managing multiple crisis situations simultaneously. These professionals understand that mental preparation prevents mental breakdown when lives depend on their performance. Visualization training represents one of the most powerful mental exercises because it allows you to practice handling challenging situations before they occur in real life. Athletes use visualization to mentally rehearse their performance before competitions. Surgeons visualize complex procedures before entering the operating room. Business leaders mentally practice difficult conversations before important negotiations. This mental rehearsal creates neural pathways that make you more prepared and confident when facing actual pressure situations. Cognitive reframing exercises train your mind to interpret challenging situations as opportunities rather than threats. Instead of automatically viewing pressure as something negative, you learn to see it as a chance to demonstrate your capabilities and build stronger skills. This shift in perspective changes your entire physiological response because your nervous system reacts differently when you perceive challenge rather than danger. Random stress exposure is what most people experience throughout their lives. Unexpected challenges that catch them unprepared and overwhelm their untrained mental capacities. This creates negative associations with pressure because these experiences feel chaotic, uncontrollable, and traumatic. Random stress exposure often damages confidence and creates anxiety patterns that make future challenges feel even more threatening. Intentional mental conditioning takes the opposite approach by creating controlled exposures to manageable stressors that systematically build your capabilities. You choose the timing, the intensity, and the duration of these challenges. You have support systems in place and recovery periods built into the training. This creates positive associations with pressure because you experience success and growth rather than overwhelm and failure. Mental workouts that prepare you for life's challenges can be designed around the specific types of pressure you face most frequently. If you struggle with public speaking, you can practice presentation skills in low-stakes environments before moving to more challenging audiences. If you have difficulty with conflict resolution, you can role-play difficult conversations with trusted friends before facing real interpersonal challenges. If you find decision-making overwhelming under time pressure, you can practice making choices with artificial deadlines in controlled settings. The reality becomes clear when you realize that every major life outcome depends on how well your mind functions under pressure. Your career advancement depends on how you handle job interviews, performance reviews, and challenging projects. Your relationships depend on how you manage conflicts, communicate during stress, and make decisions that affect others. Your financial success depends on how you respond to setbacks, negotiate important deals, and maintain focus during long-term goal pursuit. People who leave their mental fitness to chance are essentially gambling with every important area of their lives. They're hoping their untrained minds will somehow perform well when stakes are highest. This hope-based strategy fails consistently because pressure reveals your true level of mental conditioning. When challenges exceed your trained capacity, your performance degrades rapidly regardless of your technical skills or good intentions. The neurological changes from mental training are measurable and permanent, just like the muscle development that comes from physical exercise. Brain imaging studies show increased gray matter density in regions responsible for emotional regulation, executive function, and stress resilience. These structural changes mean your brain literally becomes more capable of handling pressure through systematic mental conditioning. Mental fitness requires the same discipline and consistency as physical fitness because both involve systematic development of specific capabilities over time. You can't build significant muscle strength by working out once a month, and you can't develop mental resilience by occasionally practicing stress management techniques. Both require regular, consistent effort with progressive challenges that push your current limits. The people who develop exceptional mental strength treat their psychological conditioning as seriously as elite athletes treat their physical training. They schedule mental workouts like important appointments. They track their progress and adjust their training based on results. They invest in quality instruction and support systems. They understand that mental fitness is not optional, but essential for performing at their potential when life demands their best. Your mind right now represents your current level of mental training, not your permanent potential. Just as your physical strength can be developed regardless of your starting point, your mental resilience can be systematically built through proper conditioning. What becomes possible when this approach to mental training spreads beyond the small group of elite performers who currently use it will transform the future of human performance, how we think about human capability. The transformation happening right now will reshape every industry and redefine what humans can achieve when mental training becomes as fundamental as literacy. Imagine a world where mental breakdowns under pressure become as rare as physical injuries in a well-equipped gym, where businesses operate with teams of mentally trained professionals who make brilliant decisions during crises instead of panicking when challenges hit, where schools teach emotional regulation and stress management as core subjects alongside math and science, where mental fitness becomes as common and expected as physical fitness. This vision isn't fantasy. It's the inevitable future that's already beginning to unfold as mental resilience training transforms from niche practice into mainstream necessity. The 2025 projections show industries preparing for complete transformation as mental resilience training becomes standard practice across every sector. Healthcare systems are integrating stress management protocols into medical training programs because they recognize that physician burnout costs the industry over $50 billion annually. Financial institutions are implementing comprehensive mental conditioning programs for traders and analysts because emotional decision-making during market volatility destroys profits and careers. Technology companies are making mental training mandatory for development teams because stressed programmers create more bugs and miss critical deadlines that cost millions in lost revenue. Manufacturing industries are discovering that mentally trained workers have 67% fewer accidents during high-pressure production periods. Airlines are requiring mental resilience certification for pilots because clear thinking during emergencies saves lives and prevents catastrophic failures. Law enforcement agencies are incorporating stress inoculation training because officers with better emotional regulation make fewer mistakes and build stronger community relationships. Every industry is recognizing that mental strength directly impacts their bottom line and competitive position. The combination of technology and ancient wisdom is creating possibilities that neither could achieve alone. Artificial intelligence now personalizes meditation programs based on individual stress patterns, heart rate variability, and brain activity measurements. Virtual reality systems create controlled stress environments where people can practice handling pressure situations safely. Biofeedback devices provide real-time data on nervous system responses, allowing people to see exactly how their mental training affects their physiology. Mobile apps track emotional regulation improvements over time, giving people measurable proof of their mental fitness gains. These technological advances make mental training more accessible and effective than ever before. Smart watches monitor stress levels throughout the day and remind users to engage breathing exercises when pressure rises. AI coaches provide personalized guidance based on individual response patterns and learning styles. Brain training games, specifically designed for stress resilience, build mental strength through progressive challenges. Online platforms connect people with trained mental fitness instructors, regardless of geographic location. The effectiveness data on emerging mental training technologies shows remarkable results. Users of AI-powered mindfulness apps report 43% improvement in stress management within 60 days. Virtual reality stress training programs produce 67% better performance under pressure compared to traditional methods. Biofeedback-assisted meditation creates 58% faster improvement in emotional regulation skills. These technologies aren't replacing human instruction, but amplifying its effectiveness and making it available to millions more people. Mastering pressure response is becoming the ultimate competitive advantage because it determines how effectively people can access and apply all their other skills when stakes are highest. Two equally qualified candidates compete for a promotion, but only one maintains composure during the high-pressure interview. Two businesses face identical market challenges, but only one has a leadership team trained to make clear decisions during crisis. Two students have similar academic preparation, but only one manages test anxiety well enough to demonstrate their knowledge. Mental resilience separates success from failure when external pressures are equal. The contrast between our current mental health crisis and the potential for widespread mental strength reveals both the problem and the solution. Right now, millions of people suffer from anxiety disorders that limit their career advancement and life satisfaction. Workplace stress costs the economy hundreds of billions in lost productivity and healthcare expenses. Relationship conflicts escalate because people lack emotional regulation skills. Poor decision-making during stress creates financial losses and missed opportunities across every area of society. But imagine the same society where mental training is as common as physical education, where children learn emotional regulation techniques alongside arithmetic, where workplaces provide mental fitness resources the same way they provide healthcare benefits, where mental strength coaching becomes as accepted as personal training. The transformation would touch every aspect of human performance and social functioning. Mental training is shifting from optional enhancement to essential life skill because modern pressures exceed what untrained minds can handle effectively. The complexity of current work environments demands cognitive abilities that don't develop naturally. The speed of technological change requires mental flexibility that must be systematically built. The global connectivity of modern life creates information overload that needs specific management skills. Mental training provides the tools for thriving in this challenging environment rather than merely surviving it. The excitement around being part of this mental training revolution comes from understanding that early adopters gain significant advantages while the majority remains unprepared. Just as the internet created massive opportunities for those who understood its potential, early mental training creates advantages for those who develop these skills before they become mainstream. The professionals who build mental resilience now will lead industries when pressure increases further. The individuals who master emotional regulation today will handle tomorrow's challenges, while others struggle with obsolete coping mechanisms. The statistics on early adopters of systematic mental training reveal the transformative potential waiting to be unlocked. Companies implementing comprehensive mental fitness programs report productivity increases of 120% among participating employees. Professionals with formal mental training advance 67% faster than colleagues who rely solely on technical skills. Students using mental resilience techniques improve academic performance by 43% while reducing stress-related health problems. These early results provide compelling evidence of what becomes possible when mental training reaches widespread adoption. Organizations that ignore mental training will fall behind competitors whose teams operate with enhanced cognitive capabilities. Industries that don't adapt to this reality will lose market share to those that embrace mental fitness as competitive strategy. Individuals who skip mental conditioning will compete against colleagues who have systematically developed superior stress response and decision-making abilities. The choice is becoming clear: develop mental resilience or accept performance limitations that others are transcending through systematic training. The revolution in human performance under pressure has already begun, and it's accelerating rapidly as more people discover the measurable benefits of mental training. Those who join this movement early will shape its direction and reap the greatest rewards as it transforms society. But understanding this future potential means nothing without taking the first step toward building your own mental strength. The science reveals what separates those who thrive from those who merely survive when everything is on the line. Here's the truth that changes everything. Mental strength is not about avoiding pressure, but mastering your response to it. The data shows 17.3% of adults now practice mindful meditation because they understand what elite performers have always known. Your mind can be trained just like your body. Start today with one simple technique. When pressure hits, take 3 deep intentional breaths. This lowers cortisol levels and restores executive function within minutes. Remember, just 5 minutes a day can lower cortisol by 23%. Practice this daily, and you begin building the neural pathways that separate those who crumble from those who rise. Calm under pressure is a skill.